Happy Monday, everyone. This is Martha with Nature Niche, and for this week I'm going to talk to you about another fun winter visitor, migrant actually, the tundra swan. So this is North America's most numerous swan, and it was first described by Lewis and Clark expedition, and it was dubbed the whistling swan because of the sound that the wings make. We're looking at the American race of tundra swan, and it's now considered the same overall species as Bewick swan, which is the Eurasian race or subspecies. They nest in the Arctic tundra, and we get to see them here in Michigan during migrations between their wintering areas along the east and west coast and the Arctic. They're attracted to large bodies of water, so estuaries, protected coastal waters, and they travel in these very characteristic large flocks. That's one way to tell them apart from mute swans. Mute swans don't travel in these large flocks. And they like to feed in agricultural fields, as you can see over my shoulder here. This is a great flock of tundra swans. So they stay in flocks except when they're on their breeding grounds, although some non-breeding birds may still continue to flock together here too. And they breed on lakes, ponds, and pools along river deltas in Alaska and Canada, and they like extensive wetland habitat. So a fun fact about these swans: in the breeding season they sleep mostly on land, and in the winter they sleep mostly on water. So here in Tuscola County we can see them feeding in an agricultural field, and we think they're heading to a local body of water probably overnight and then returning to feed. So these tundra swans are likely spending the night out on Saginaw Bay and then feeding in this agricultural field in Tuscola County, where we can drive along country roads and get to see them. These species, it nests on the ground in the Arctic region, and the adults have to defend their nests against a wide range of predators, including foxes, weasels, wolves, bears, and other birds like common ravens and golden eagles. They form permanent pair bonds by the time they're 2 to 3 years old, and they feed and roost together year-round. When they fly, they hold their long necks out straight, as you can see here. And as far as identification goes, they're a large white waterfowl with a heavy body, and of course those long characteristic swan necks. They are larger than a snow goose with a longer neck, but they're smaller than our native trumpeter swan, which is state threatened, or the non-native mute swan, which that's the typical swan a lot of people are familiar with. They're actually introduced. Tundra swans are 4 feet long, and they have greater than a 5-foot wingspan. They have black bills and can have a small yellow spot present in front of the eye, kind of leading into the bill. That's not always there and can be very hard to see. The Bewick swan, the Eurasian race I mentioned before, about a third of the bill is yellow right up next to the eye. And they tend to be slightly smaller. So that's how you tell the subspecies apart. As far as trumpeter versus tundra swan goes, the tundra swan has more of a U shape to the black area where the bill meets the forehead, and trumpeter swans, that's a deeper V shape. So definitely need your binoculars or a spotting scope to be able to see that. And mute swans, of course, have a black upper bill with sort of a nodule, and most of the bill is orange in color. So they're a little bit easier to tell apart. The immatures of tundra swans are gray tinged. You can see several in the shot here. They have gray on the wings, on their head, and on their neck. And when these birds are on the water, they keep their necks straight and they tip forward and dabble along the bottom to forage for food. They eat plants, including the tubers, stems, and leaves of aquatic vegetation. They, in particular, like pondweed and different sedges. They will also eat mollusks and other arthropods. As they're migrating to their wintering grounds from the Arctic, they will stop in agricultural fields and eat corn, soybeans, and rice left over from harvest. They'll also feed on growing winter crops like winter wheat, rye, and barley. For example, on wintering grounds along Chesapeake Bay, they'll eat clams, and oftentimes they have to deal with ring-billed herring and greater black-backed gulls that like to swoop down and steal the mollusks right out from their bills. That happens about 50% of the time, and that is called a kleptoparasitic encounter. As far as conservation goes, tundra swans have relatively stable populations. There is an annual regulated hunting season. And main threats include lead poisoning from spent shot, fishing sinkers, and mine waste that gets deposited in the sediment, and then they consume that while dabbling along the shoreline. They also face disease like avian cholera, and oil and gas drilling in the Arctic may disturb them during the breeding season. They also suffer from the loss of wetlands along their migratory stopover sites, so especially in the prairie pothole region of the Midwest. So one of the things we can do to ensure that we have this species to enjoy for a long time to come is to restore and create wetland habitat along their migratory routes. Hope you get a chance to get out and see a characteristic flock of tundra swans yourself. Thanks for listening.